Well, tomorrow, Avatar Fire and Ash hits theaters. Everybody's going to be able to go see it. I know I've got my 4 o'clock screening of it tomorrow. I'm going to go see that. Hopefully get a glimpse of whatever the Avengers trailer is going to be that plays in front of it. And now we've got the locked box office projections for it. And Deadline is reporting that Avatar Fire and Ash is set to set the world ablaze with a $380 million box office opening worldwide. That's not the actual opening weekend. The actual opening weekend number, which is always measured by domestic, is somewhere between $90 and $105 million.
Not strong domestically for what it is, but yeah.
Well, I mean, but that's the funny. Okay, look. So when we hear 90 to 105, that's a very good opening weekend for a lot of films.
Yeah.
It would not be considered a great opening weekend for an Avengers film. Would not be considered a good opening weekend for an Avatar film. Films that are considered to be huge tentpole blockbusters. But once again, we need to remind ourselves that the Avatar films never open big.
Nope.
It's funny. I was playing poker the other night, and the conversation of Avatar came up, and I mentioned to somebody that, do you know that the original Avatar movie only opened to $70 million? Or right around there. Correct me if I'm wrong. 77?
Yeah.
Opened to $77 million. And they looked at me like I was an idiot. Like, no, I had like a $200 million. I'm like, no, it had like a 70-something million dollar opening. And then sure enough, they pulled out their phone and looked up like, holy crap, how does that happen? And then the second Avatar movie, one of the rarest members of the $2 billion club, that one made right around the $130 million mark.
Yeah, 130.
Better than the first Avatar, but like not what you would think as the top 3 or 4 biggest films of all time. You're thinking 250 million. The Avatar films don't open large. They open where they open. The trick and the magic sauce, of course, with Avatar is what kind of legs it has and how far it goes. Rob, I'm not surprised to hear that it's going to have a smaller opening than, say, Way of Water did. I don't really feel like they've marketed this one nearly as much as they did Way of Water. At least I haven't felt that way. And it is what it is. Plus, between when Way of Water came out and today, again, there's fewer people going to the movies right now, although some new reports coming out in Variety are suggesting that that curve may be changing now. We might be starting to see people coming back to the theaters. But regardless, so I'm not terribly surprised. But Rob, whether they said that Way of Water was going to open, or I'm sorry, Fire and Ash was going to open with $65 million or $165 million, my thought would still be the same. I don't think that tells us anything about how well it's going to do ultimately overall. If it opened to $65 million, I still think we don't know how it's ultimately going to do. If it opened to $165 million, I think we just don't do, because again, unlike a lot of other films, which you can kind of project how they're going to do overall once you see their opening weekend, you can't do that with Avatar. So I'm going to be really curious to see how this does. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this episode, PrizePicks. Honestly, this is the best time of year for sports. We've got hockey, basketball's heating up, football pushing towards the playoffs, and big games happening every single night. And while we can sit around and argue about which team's going to win, there's one place where it just feels good to be right, and that's PrizePicks. What I love most about PrizePicks is just how simple it is. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, build your lineup, and that's it. No drafts, no season-long commitments, just jump in whenever you want. And I have been having a blast making lineups while watching games, and it honestly makes every matchup way more fun to follow. One of the coolest things about it is that they've just added early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may have the option to cash out before the game even finishes. And I also love how flexible it is. Whether you're going for safer, flex play, or bigger power plays, PrizePicks makes everything super clear with their payout multipliers. So here's what you do. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code Campea to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Campea to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. But anyway, Rob, you're hearing these numbers. Are they higher than what you thought they'd be, lower, right around where you thought they'd be? And what do you think this means for the film overall?
Well, again, I think they're in line with what I thought. I do think that the movie's probably going to outperform what these domestic numbers are. I don't know anything about international in terms of being able to gauge, because I don't know how many territories it's opening. It's probably opening all over the world.
That's why you always only measure domestic for opening weekend.
Yeah, so you measure domestic. And look, having seen the film, you can say all the things that people have been saying the same criticism since the first Avatar. Anybody who criticizes it, but the fact is, these movies are incredible experiential events. And you can talk all you want about how it's Fern Gully in space and how you don't like blue cat people. I don't care. You are being a contrarian. You're not paying attention. And when you tell me that, well, it has no pop culture footprint. Well, okay, but how many films actually do that made money? Zootopia, for instance. Aside from Zootopia 1 and 2 coming out, love Zootopia. Is everybody going to Zootopia parties? Are you dressing up as the characters from Zootopia for Halloween? I mean, what does that mean? What people are judging these films by is like Star Wars, movies that we've been fans of for 50 effing years and that we grew up with. Avatar's not that. Avatar doesn't star people that you want to emulate. You can't, I don't want to be, I'm sure if I was a 6-year-old, I wouldn't tell my mom, I want to be Jake Sully when I grow up, because he's a Pandoran. I mean, I think this movie and these movies are terrific adventures. And like I said, this is kind of the Rocky 3 of the franchise. It is wildly entertaining. I defy anybody to watch the first hour of this movie and not be locked in. It is unbelievable. And I'll tell you something, it switches from high frame rate. You got to go see it in high frame rate. So in a high frame rate 3D, it does go between high frame rate sequences. It's variable frame rate. It is so amazing. The 3D HFR in this movie, it's so jaw-dropping. I'm like, Jimmy C, man, that guy has been, since the pseudopod came out of the water in the abyss, that guy has been changing the technology of making films. And, you know, when they try to follow up everything with the 3D craze, because Avatar started that 3D craze.
Yeah. That died.
It died because nobody did it right.
No.
I mean, you look at if every movie was made the way James Cameron can do 3D, 3D would be a huge thing. The problem was everybody tried to skimp on it and didn't do it right. We're going to do a post-conversion.
People, I disagree. People do not care about 3D. It's just been proven. It's just been proven over and over again.
But not with these movies. These movies prove that people will go if it's well done.
In a very rare exception.
Yes.
I agree with that. Because I saw, you know me, I hate 3D. And I went to go see Avatar the first time. The first Avatar in 3D. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this one a pass, right? Yeah. But then I watched it again in non-3D. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't any less of an experience, but that's just me.
Right. Yeah, but you're right, dude. Seeing this movie at the Directors Guild, that's a flex. Well, it was so jaw dropping because you're watching it in a theater that's perfectly calibrated the way James Cameron spends his life making sure it is, and you're seeing it the way it was supposed to be done. That's part of the reason that people aren't going to movie theaters, because it's not just Avatar. Movies are not being presented in the way. I didn't like Black Phone much, but I saw it at the Irvine Spectrum in their IMAX theater. The presentation of that movie was gorgeous. It looked so amazing. And I'm like, why aren't all screens like this?
Right. Well, now we're getting into a separate topic altogether.
But everyone's going to go. You know, they're going to go.
I want to bring this one up again because you brought up something that's said a lot. It's like people, like when people are grasping at straws at something to criticize about Avatar, say it doesn't have any pop cultural footprint. And I'm one of those people who used to say that. I'm one of them. So I say this as somebody who was one of those people. Until Avatar: The Way of Water came out, there is no deeper imprint in the ground than your sequel making $2.3 billion at the box office.
Right.
You want to say it doesn't have a pop culture imprint? $2.3 billion worth of people got online and bought tickets to go see this thing. Don't talk to me about pop cultural imprint, because I was one of the people who said that too. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how it's received. Again, it is the lowest critically rated of the three, but only by a finite amount. The difference between the highest critically rated of the three and the lowest critically rated of the three is literally only 11%.
It's just, this movie's familiar.
You know what? I was just thinking about what it doesn't have, and I'm not saying that this is why people say it doesn't have pop cultural it's just one little thing. But like you look at Lord of the Rings, they all had like a song that went it hit the charts, right? You had like Annie Lennox and all that stuff. You had Titanic, which, come on, I hate that song, but dude, that was a massive
How
song.
can you hate that song? It's one of the great songs. It's
My heart is
overdone
still
and
going
overplayed.
on.
It's just because it's cheesy.
We
I'm
can
not
be
saying
tired of it.
he performs it beautifully, but I'm just saying, you know, I'm not running out on Spotify.
By the way,
and
Lord of the
playing.
Rings had 3 songs.
Yeah.
And then the third one ended with
But
Annie
my
Lennox.
point is,
Come
Avatar
on.
doesn't really have like any kind of bangers that are hitting the charts like afterwards.
Although this
so-
one's got Miley Cyrus.
That's true. So that might be.
Maybe that's their way of trying to change the trend on that.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The projection numbers are now out for the opening weekend of Avatar, of Fire and Ash. It's coming right in between the original Avatar and the second Avatar. But again, with Avatar films, the question is always, how does it do in the long run? And it's impossible to tell that from their opening weekend box office. Remember, Way of Water, its opening weekend, everybody proclaimed that Avatar 2 was a major flop. Then it went on to make $2.3 billion. So who knows? We'll see what happens here. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.